As back in October, Tom Taylor kicked off the all-in era for the Detective Comics title with issue 1090 and a story that introduced a mysterious new villain named Asima that is killing teenage criminals in Gotham, along with some wild new additions to Bruce Wayne's history. You could find our initial episode covering that issue in its entirety right here, but the craziest and most impactful reveal was when we learned that sometime before the Waynes were murdered in Crime Alley, Thomas Wayne performed surgery on a man who had been severely injured in a car accident. Then on the final page of issue 1090, we find out that man he saved was Joe Chill. Now that would be crazy enough all by itself, but it doesn't stop there, because the issue also tells us that Joe Chill's abused and pregnant girlfriend was with him in the car during the accident, which caused her to deliver the child early. And when she learned that Thomas had saved Chill's life, she asked them to take and hide their child because Joe was a monster. So Thomas and Martha used their connections to relocate both the mother and her child to give them a new life away from Joe Chill. This obviously kicks the door wide open for the possibility that Joe Chill's targeting of the Waynes outside the Monarch Theater that night was no random act of violence, but rather an act of revenge after Chill found out that the Waynes robbed him of his girlfriend and child. This, combined with Bruce's struggle to stop the new villain from killing teenage boys, seems to be setting Bruce on a collision course with revelations that may turn his approach to crime fighting upside down. It's actually a crazy compelling idea, and we laid out all our theories for what Tom Taylor could be setting up in this episode right here. So give that a watch and give us your theories as well. However, we did notice quite a few people commenting on that episode that they thought the twist would be that Bruce Wayne was actually Joe Chill's child. But in the issue, Bruce is shown to be around 8 or 9 years old that night Thomas saved Chill's life, so that's definitely not a possibility. Also, just no. Anyway, that gives us setup for where we are now and leads us to issue 1091, which dropped a couple of weeks ago. So let's see where things go from there. The issue opens up with Bruce having a nightmare about the last young victim, Sam Kristoff, who he failed to protect from Asima in the last issue. In the nightmare, we see the Joker choking Batman while saying, "It's time, Batsy. It's finally time to die, old man." But Robin arrives and yells, "Hey, Joker." And on the next page, we see that Sam Kristoff is dressed as Robin, and he tells Joker, "Get off him," before shooting him dead. A shocked Batman says, "What did you do?" To which Sam replies, "I saved you," but Batman tells him, "You took a life." Sam quickly responds, "And he's the freaking Joker. What's his life compared to yours?" This pisses Batman off even more, so he spins around and backhands Robin into a wall. But again, this is a nightmare, and Bruce is replaying his real-world interaction with Sam in his mind after the boy accidentally shot the clerk of the store he was robbing. In the same way, Bruce's nightmare ends with Sam dressed as Robin, lying in the same position Batman found him after he was murdered. And with his last breath, he asks Bruce, "Why do you deserve to keep on living when my life is over?" And with that, Bruce wakes up. Now, we need to lay all this out in detail because it really builds on a couple important things that this story is clearly setting up. Starting with Bruce questioning his approach to stopping violent criminals and the consequences of his no-kill rule, which is deeply rooted in him as a core principle his father taught him before he was killed. So writer Tom Taylor clearly has a reason to drive the point here that in Bruce's mind, taking a life or failing to save one is like failing his father all over again. This is, of course, one of the biggest drivers for everything Bruce does as Batman, and why he is so tormented by the fact that he failed to protect Sam. This in turn leads to Batman's concern that after years of crime fighting, the physical toll is catching up to him, fueling the idea that his weakness probably cost Sam his life. And when you combine all this with the looming revelation that Thomas Wayne's decision to save Joe Chill's life set in motion the greatest tragedy in Bruce's life, it's not hard to see the recipe for the wild ride ahead. After Bruce wakes up from his nightmare, he gives up on sleeping and heads down to the Batcave to suit up, all while saying to himself, 9 kids, all late teens, all murdered in a single month. The only thing linking them is they all had been in juvenile detention. We're now monitoring 8 other individuals recently released into the community. But his thoughts just go back to the boys he didn't save as he says to himself, 9 young lives, all taken too soon, as I'm contemplating something that will extend my own life. Now, what Batman is referring to there, as he continues to be haunted by this case, is that a new character introduced in the last issue, named Scarlet Martha Scott, has essentially offered Bruce access to a Fountain of Youth treatment. You see, in issue 1090, we learn that Bruce has known Scarlet since she spent time in a Wayne shelter as a kid. In fact, Bruce tells us that Scarlet was one of the last people his mother helped directly, which obviously immediately opens the possibility that she is the daughter that the Waynes hid from Joe Chill, but we don't have confirmation on that yet. Either way, this definitely establishes that she is someone Bruce really cares about and trusts. But here's the thing, Scarlet was also the youngest ever chief geneticist at Wayne Tech, and now owns a highly successful genetics-based wellness company named Theramize Health. And in the last issue, she invited Bruce to her lab where she told him that she has found partners who have helped her develop a powerful longevity drug called Songral, and that she wants him to be one of the first to benefit from the de-aging treatment. Now, typically Bruce would reject something like this outright, but with the physical limitations of time and age starting to creep up on him, he's seriously considering taking her up on it. Yes, this is a lot of detail, but it's all important because we really think Tom Taylor is about to completely wreck the Dark Knight's world. I mean, if you think the stuff we've laid out already is bad, just wait until the end of this issue. Anyway, on the next page of the issue, we see Batman arrive at the Gotham coroner's office where he finds Harvey Bullock standing quietly in the examination room where Sam Kristoff's body is being kept. Batman asks, "Is this your case, Bullock?" A somber Bullock replies, "I made it mine." Batman then gets to business and asks him what the autopsy found. Bullock tells him that the cause of Sam's death was the same as the other victims. He was knocked out with a high dose of midazolam via intramuscular injection before being cut in such a way that he bled out quickly. Batman then asks if there was a next of kin, to which Harvey tells him that he has an uncle who was contacted, but he's not coming. Harvey then says, "So the kid doesn't have anyone, like the others." A clearly saddened Batman puts his head down and says, "I hit him, Harvey." Bullock responds, "He just shot a guy. I saw the security footage. He was still holding the gun." Batman then looks up at Sam's body and asks, "Did you read his file?" But Harvey clearly sees that Batman is blaming himself and replies, "Yeah, I saw what he went through as a boy. You did nothing wrong." Batman says there were several ways I could have disarmed him without harm. But Bullock tries to disarm Batman's guilt again by telling him, "He'd shot a guy. You're a human. At least, I assume you are. You did nothing wrong." But before anything further could be said, Oracle radios in over the comm saying Batman, one of the kids we're monitoring, was just snatched off the streets at Lucas and 5th. A boy named Kai Edwards, 16. Security cameras caught the whole thing. Robin is already en route. Batman tells her he's on his way and turns to leave, but on his way out, he turns and tells Bullock Sam does have someone. They all do. On the next page, we see Batman in the Batmobile racing to catch up with Robin. He radios into Robin saying, "I'm a block away. Where are you?" To which Robin replies, "I'm on the truck," as we see him hanging off the back of the speeding box truck the kidnappers are driving. Batman then catches up to them and fires cable grappling hooks into the back of the truck, then rips the back doors open to expose the criminals inside. Robin then swings in and starts making quick work of the 8 to 10 criminals, as we also see the young boy they kidnapped tied up inside. Batman then joins the beatdown, and we get captions of Batman's thoughts that say, "Damian makes it look effortless. And I remember when it was effortless for me too. It feels like yesterday, when I didn't have to think about the angle of the strike, when the impact of my boot was only a concern for the person on the other end of it." Then as the fight continues, Batman goes on by saying, "It's hard not to contemplate what I've been offered. Something that could take me back to yesterday. Something that could mean less struggle, less pain." At which point, one of the thugs hits Batman in the knee with a crowbar, but a now furious Batman transfers the pain into retaliation and punches the dude right out the back of the moving truck. Batman then turns and slams another one of the guys into the wall of the truck by his neck and tells him, "Talk. Why did you take Kai?" The scared thug responds, "Before the kid went inside, he took some money that belonged to our boss." Batman then says to himself, "I know who these people work for. He isn't a forgiving man." And at the same time, Robin unties the kid and he starts yelling, "I keep telling them I didn't take anything, I swear." But Batman just picks up the boy, throws him over his shoulder, and tells the thug, "Tell your boss I'll be by to see him soon," before jumping out of the back of the truck and onto the hood of the Batmobile with the kid and Robin. When they land, however, Batman grabs his knee and winces in pain, then tells Robin to find the boy a safe hotel room. He also tells Robin he's fine, but on the next page we see him immediately meet with Superman on the top of a building. Clark then scans his knee with X-ray vision and tells him, "Grade 1 medial collateral ligament tear. If you stay off of it for a couple of weeks, it should be okay." Given how likely it is that you won't stay off it, I suggest a couple of months of very stoic discomfort. Supes then gets more serious and says, "Alfred isn't here to remind you, so I'll say it for him. Bruce, ignoring pain doesn't make you strong. I'm assuming you didn't ask to meet just for a free knee scan." Batman then tells Clark, "I've been offered something, a medical breakthrough. It's rare, only available to a select few. It slows aging." To which Superman replies, "Sounds good," but Bruce quickly and sarcastically asks, "Does it?" At this point, Superman sees what's really going on and says, "Ah, the guilt, of course. Bruce, this country does many things well, but it leaves too many behind. Your wealth and privilege already ensure you have a greater life expectancy. But you know this, so I imagine this all boils down to two things. You don't want a longer life if it's not available to others, and you don't want to watch the people you love fade away. I know why you wanted to talk to me now." Batman then looks into the distance and asks, "You're Kryptonian. You will outlive everyone, your friends. Lois, how do you carry that?" And Superman tells him, "Well, the nature of the work means my natural longevity may not come into it. I've already died more than once. As for how I carry the possibility, I was spared when everyone else on my world died. You've lived when others have lost their lives. That guilt will probably always be with you and mine with me. But the opposite is also true. Knowing how fortunate I am to be here, I'm grateful for every day I get to live with my friends and family." Superman then goes on to say, Bruce, if humanity is on the cusp of a great leap forward, I prefer you were a part of it. And I know this world is safer the longer Batman is here to protect it. Then as Superman begins to fly away, Batman asks, how can you support this if I'm the only one who benefits? And Superman turns around and tells him, because I know you won't be the only one to benefit. If this works and truly helps lives, you'll find a way to share it with the world, as he turns and flies off. Now that vote of confidence from the Man of Steel solidifies Bruce's decision to accept Scarlet's offer. And on the next page, we see him arrive at Theramai's health headquarters as Scarlet tells him, I'm very glad you agreed to this. I know how this probably looks. How inherently selfish, but can I let you in on a secret, Bruce? I have more than one motive for what we're doing here. Scarlet then goes on to say the world's wealthiest are often the world's greediest, the most resource consuming, and the most destructive. So what happens if they're given longer on this world? To which Bruce turns and responds, they may realize it's in their best interest to preserve the planet if they're still standing on it. And with that, they enter the lab and Scarlet introduces Bruce to Dr. Forster, who tells them they need to run some tests. For obvious reasons, Bruce asks to leave his shirt on, as he says to himself, I was afraid of this. There are some things that are hard to explain. All the poorly healed bones, the plates and pins, the scars from bullets and knives and demonic claws. So Bruce uses an excuse about being self-conscious, and while Dr. Forster starts to push back, Scarlet jumps in and says it's fine. The clearly unhappy Dr. Forster then turns to Bruce and says, we can forego a few of the checks, but we'll still need you to undertake a physical. We'll need blood, heart monitoring, strength, and stamina testing. The program you're starting is expensive and the treatment is very rare. To put it bluntly, we don't want to waste resources on a body that's already dying. And it's at this point you can't help but notice that Dr. Forster not only looks suspicious, but also seems to be hiding behind her mask and goggles. Could this be Joe Chill's old girlfriend and Scarlet's mom? I guess we'll see. Anyway, they start running strength tests on Bruce as he says to himself, have to make this look hard. Can't look too capable. Dr. Forster then notices that he appears to be favoring his right leg while jogging on a treadmill. And Bruce tells her it's from a small MCL injury earlier in the week. At which point Scarlet chimes in and says, you could have told us that before we made you run 10 miles. Anyway, after extensive testing, they conclude that Bruce is in very good shape and already biologically younger than his age. So Scarlet says, then I guess we're ready for the next step. So they hook Bruce up to an IV and Scarlet begins to explain the treatment protocol while also giving him tablets to be taken at specific times of the day and cosmetic creams to help with the process. But this leads to the Sand Graal, and before injecting it into his IV, she warned him that the difference after the first treatment is quite pronounced. Bruce then asks, Dr. Forster isn't going to do this? To which Scarlet replies, I always insist on administering the first treatment. A bit of professional pride. She then tells him that small knee injury, it won't be a problem for long. She then injects the Sand Graal serum, which knocks Bruce out for the count, and we next see him sleeping in the Batcave as Damian wakes him up. Bruce then asks, what time is it? And Damian tells him 2 a.m. It's enough that you have slept at all, but you've been out for about 11 hours. Are you all right? Bruce then begins to test his injured knee and says, yes, I think I am. Damian then turns to business and says, you know that money Kai definitely didn't steal? To which Bruce says, he handed it over to you. Robin then confirms and asks, how did you know he had it? To which Bruce responds, he was wearing a $1,000 watch, followed by asking where he put him. Robin tells him Kai is in the Gotham 3 seasons, and Bruce just responds by saying that he'll square things with the owner of the money before turning around with a syringe and asking Damian to take some of his blood. To which Damian sarcastically says, some fathers and sons play catch. We are then taken to the Iceberg Lounge as Batman narrates saying, I didn't have to choose the front door. There were several ways to do this, but the Iceberg Lounge doesn't skimp on protection. He then tells the bouncers guarding the front door that he has something for their boss as they ask if he has an appointment. Batman's narration then continues to say, the people here are formidable, well-trained, and quick to turn to violence. I wanted the test. As we see Batman putting his physical state to the test and using those goons as guinea pigs to do it. Over the next few panels, he continues to lay waste to all of them while telling us everything feels a little bit faster, muscles are looser, the small aches, the constant reminders of past injuries aren't as pronounced. Knee still has some pain, but it's definitely improved. Then just as he is finishing off the last of the thugs, we see the Penguin standing in the doorway screaming, enough, stop breaking my things. Penguin then ushers Batman into the lounge and asks, what do you have for me? Batman tells him, you sent your people after a young man named Kai. I have the money he took. Penguin gets excited and says, well, I appreciate you delivering it, before realizing this is Batman he's talking to, and his face drops as he says, you're not delivering it, are you? Batman stoically replies, if I can see records that clearly show the money didn't come from crime, then it's yours. But they both know exactly where the money came from, so Penguin just tells Batman, keep it, buy yourself something pretty. They then enter Penguin's office, and Batman begins to question him about what he knows regarding the young criminals who are being murdered, specifically if he knows who's behind it. As Penguin pours a glass of wine, he says, "No, and I have certainly made inquiries. The targeted nature of the killings has a number of people in my community nervous." He then turns to Batman and says, "I imagine from a professional position, you're a little jealous." Batman replies, "What are you talking about?" And the Penguin digs at him, saying, "Putting fear into the hearts of criminals is your thing. Seems as if someone else is doing it more effectively." The now visibly angry Batman glares at the Penguin and says, "Your business with the kid is done, Oswald. Do you understand?" And as Batman turns to walk out, Penguin leaps up from behind his desk saying, "He took from me." To which Batman replies, "And now I have what he took," basically daring Penguin to do something about it. But on the final page of the issue, just as Batman thinks Kai is safe and in the clear, we are taken to the Three Seasons Hotel where Robin stashed Kai. We see him watching TV when he hears a rap at the window. The kid then goes to check it out thinking it's Robin or Batman, but he finds out that it's the serial killer Asima, who grabs him by the neck with her Freddy Krueger-like claws as the issue ends. So as you can see, we have several different things building up now, including the fact that it sounds like this mystery villain is killing these boys to take their blood. And if their blood turns out to be the key ingredient to the life-extending Songral drug he just let Scarlet give him, combined with all the other stuff swirling around Bruce, that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Because as we laid out in our theory episode on all this, we think Tom Taylor is possibly setting the stage for Batman to have his own Killing Joke-style perfect storm of events, which prey on his worst fears and traumas to push him over the edge, because like the Joker said, all it takes is one really bad day. And I gotta tell you, the pieces that are already in place are making the stakes feel higher than normal in the story. So we're really digging it, and we'll absolutely continue to cover it as the story unfolds in the new year. But as always, make sure to get to your local comic shop and pick up a copy of these issues for yourself, not only to get the full experience of the story, but to also support the creators who are doing such great work. Anyway, hit us up in the comments and let us know your thoughts and theories about where this Batman story is headed and where you'd like to see it go.